now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show brings you famous celebrities and amazing people from all over the world. Listen online at themikewagnershow.com and on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHEart Radio. And watch the interview on YouTube. So sit back and relax and enjoy the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download it and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHEart Radio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, also on iTunes, Apple, Google Play. And take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device and subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. We're here once again with Dr. Clete Bulach. We had him on earlier. He was talking about the human relations and talked about the openness factors, parental trust, and everything else. And he's the author of Enhancing a High-Performing School Culture and Climate, and School Climate and Culture, Vis-a-Vis Student Learning, published by Rowman and Littlefield. He's a retired Ohio School Superintendent and Associate Professor Emeritus at University of West Georgia, and also Superintendent of the West Virginia Schools. And this time, we'll be talking about test scores. And welcoming back to the Mike Wagner Show, and live from the beautiful Peachtree State, Dr. Clete Bulach. Dr. Clete, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us again.
Hey, it's a pleasure being on your show.
Well, it's great. Of course, we enjoyed Ohio State, Buckeye cap and everything else. And I was going to show you off one of my adopted alma maters, University of North Dakota. But I guess, with some of the technology, that's not possible. We can do that another day or so. And you have a couple of books called Author of Enhancing a High-Performing School Culture and Climate, and School Climate and Culture Vis-a-Vis Student Learning, published by Rowman and Littlefield. You're retired Ohio School Superintendent and Associate Professor Emeritus of University of West Georgia. We talked earlier about human relations and also addressed each of the factors in the 5 chapters in Book 1. And, of course, Book 2 describe how to enhance the changes made on the school reform implemented in Book 1, and of course, maybe just give us a little recap on how you got started, and a little bit about we talked about human relations before getting into test scores, which is quite fairly important these days in the school system.
Yep. Okay. So how do you want to start this?
Okay, well, basically just a little recap on, for listeners, how you got started, basically, and of course, a recap from Book 1 as well, too. We talked earlier about the openness factors, the interpersonal communications, and, just a little bit of it, and then we'll talk about the test scores and how it just all comes together.
Well, all this started back in 2002, when I got a contract to evaluate every school district in the state of West Virginia on how their schools were implementing character education. So I had to go around to every school district, elementary, middle, and high schools, and interview teachers and students on their character ed program. And I asked, what do you like about your schools? What don't you like about your schools? And based on those thousands of interviews, I came to a realization that most kids don't like to go to school. Mm-hmm. About 50% don't want to go to school. And many teachers don't like to teach. About half the teachers that I talked to said they were thinking about quitting the profession. And based on all that information, I've decided I got to write a book that will create a school where kids will like to go to school and where teachers don't regret Monday coming and don't regret Friday having to leave. So, a lot of teachers don't enjoy teaching in the current environment in schools across the United States. A lot of kids don't like to go to school. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wrote the two books. One is how to create a school where kids will like to go, where teachers will love to teach. And the second book is on how do you enhance that school. The second book deals basically with how do you communicate. There are 5 basic communication skills, and we've talked about that, I think. Mm-hmm. And how do you deal with conflict? There are 5 conflict management styles. One of those is how to avoid a conflict, and that's kind of interesting. Uh-huh. And the biggest problem in schools and in life in general is levels of openness and trust. How do you be open to someone? How do you trust someone? It's all about relationships with teachers and students, with teachers and administration. Do you trust them? Are you open with them, or are you guarded? And what I found was that in most schools, the culture and climate was not good. Teachers were guarded, protecting their back. Students were guarded with other students, with their teachers. And the relationships, the human relationships in schools, and in many relationships, whether it's a business or wherever, is not good.
Mm-hmm. And of course, this also comes as well, too, with the causes of low test scores and everything else. You talked about a poor school culture and climate. And back in the day, that test scores weren't, very, very, very emphasized. Now, all of a sudden, it's become more of an emphasis in everything else and causes stress as well, too. And, just a correlation of, test scores back then and test scores now. And why is it, becoming more of a problem again?
Yeah, I got an email from the State Department of Education here in Georgia just yesterday who had written an article on the effect of school climate on attendance and the importance of it. And, of course, all of my research going back 40 years says that school climate determines test scores, determines attendance, determines discipline, and on and on. And the crazy thing is, most schools do not measure school culture and climate, mm-hmm. or use a survey that identifies what they can do to improve it. A lot of schools, and here in Georgia, they have a school climate measurement, and it tells them whether they have a good school climate or a poor one. Uh-huh. And out of the 2,800 schools here in Georgia, 200 have a very, very poor climate. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't tell them what to do to fix it. It tells them they've got a poor climate. The survey that I use, and it's on my website, and it's free, identifies what you have to do to improve it. Mm-hmm. And you've got my website.
Yes, I do. It's I'm trying to find it here. It's drcletebulach.com, and maybe you can just tell it once again. Let's go ahead and look here. So okay. So we're trying to find that here, trying to find the website. Just like to remind everybody, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@SonicWebStudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can also listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHEart Radio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, and also iTunes, Apple, and Google Play. And also take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. And can also just subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on YouTube as well. We're here with Dr. Clete Bulach, and this is at westga.edu. And we're going to click on surveys here. So we're going to take a look. Okay, that's not the right one. So, and of course, he's the external evaluator for character education for state of Georgia and West Virginia. So we have the Instructional Improvement Survey. So if you go to his website, you can just take a look. And it just gives 4 items that measure democratic factors, 96 behaviors. And also we have the example of a school's culture and climate graph. So this is the one you want to have us take a look at?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So with the magic technology here, we're just trying to get it undone. So we're at Microsoft, and we're taking a look right here. So we're opening it. Don't you love computers, by the way? Okay. All right, here we go. So we got My Place Middle School Culture and Climate Analysis. So we have group openness, scores by variable at 32%, 2007, 32.2, 2008, group trust at 26.4, and group trust 27.7. This is 2008. So from 2007, group cooperation 29.7, and group cooperation at 31.7, and we have group atmosphere 27.3, and then group atmosphere 29.1, and sense of mission at 31.7, and it went up 33.7, and lastly, parent involvement 32.7 and 33.2. So, there's some numbers, and maybe you can just, give us a little sense on that one.
Well, you can see all those numbers are low.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened. I've got data on hundreds of schools from California to, I've done a lot of work with, before Belly Up went up in New Jersey. What's that gambling city there?
Mm-hmm.
And Trump had a casino in that city. What was it in New Jersey? That was the gambling capital.
I think it was in Atlantic City, I believe.
Yeah. I did a lot of work in that school until they ran out of money when everything went kaput.
Belly Up, yes.
Belly Up. And, most of these schools have a poor culture and climate. And if you're a kid, if you walk into a school and you go into the secretary's office, and what you see in the hallways and what you see in that office determines what the culture and climate is, what's going on in that school, the way people relate to each other. And in most schools, it is not good.
Mm-hmm.
In the state of Georgia, 2,800 schools, 200 schools have a toxic culture and climate. 200 have a great culture and climate, and the rest fall all the way in between. And the reason for a school culture and climate is the way people treat each other.
Uh-huh.
The interpersonal relationships between teachers and students, and between teachers and the administration, and between parents and the administration and the teachers. That determines the culture and the climate. There are 11 indicators of culture and climate. And all of that's on my website, and that survey is there, so I won't repeat it here. Anybody that wants to look at it can look at one of the reports that I have done on a school that I worked with, pre and post, on their school culture and climate improvement plan. But then you come up with the 5 reasons for a school culture and climate. The biggest reason is discipline. What teachers have to do day in and day out to control the misbehavior of students. Give me that note you're writing. Look up here. Get your head up. Sit in your seat. And on with the various commands that teachers have to give to students to get them to pay attention in class so they can teach. Mm-hmm. And I have a number of techniques I use to improve that relationship between teachers and students. You want to hear them?
Absolutely.
Okay, number one, and I've used this as a teacher, as a principal, as a superintendent, and as a college professor. What do you expect of me as your teacher, as your principal, as your superintendent, as your professor? I give them 3-by-5 cards, and I say, I want you to write 3 expectations that you have of me. And the kids look at me and they say, you want us to tell you what we expect? Because that's not normal. Mm-hmm. In most situations, everybody tells them what they expect, the leader. Mm-hmm. I try to create this relationship where I am here to serve. I am your servant. I may be your boss and your leader, but basically I need to know what you expect so I can be a better servant, mm-hmm. leader. Okay. So they give me the cards, and I look at them, and I come up with a chart, and I go back to and since there's one thing on every card, even though I've got 125 students, I can quickly sort within 1 hour, sometimes 2. I can quickly sort what they expect, and I put them in a common pile, and then I go back to the pile, and I paraphrase what's in the pile. This is what they expect, and I come back, and I share with them, this is what you guys expect of me as your teacher, as your principal, as your superintendent, as your professor. And I tell them, I'm going to do my best to meet your expectations. Here is one expectation that I don't think I can meet, if there is one. And normally there were some that were in violation of state rules regarding boards of education that I couldn't meet. So I would tell them what I couldn't do. I'd tell them what I wanted to do. So that was establishing the relationship. I am a servant leader. I am here to serve you. I'm listening. I trust you. I'm taking this risk. I care. I care about you guys. That's why I'm doing this. So I established a relationship. When I was a teacher, the next thing I did was I said, guys, I need to know what rules you want enforced in this classroom. And they look at me like I'm crazy. They say, you want us to tell you what the rules are? I said, yeah, I'd like to know what you think the rules ought to be in this classroom. I gave them 3-by-5 cards, and again, I'd sort them in common piles. I'd come up with the rules. I'd post them on a big poster board up on the wall, and those were the rules. And if there was a rule they didn't put in there that I wanted, I just put it in. One of the rules that they fell, and I was a teacher for 7 years, one of the rules they never put in was put your homework in on time. Turn your homework in on time.
Really? That was not one of them they wrote?
Oh, they hated that one.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
So I just put it in. Turn your homework in on time. When I was a principal, the big one was disciplining teachers who didn't turn in the clock, punch in the clock at 7:30, because that was when most teachers had to report. Mm-hmm. They said, you need to deal with the individuals who don't report on time. Don't talk to the entire faculty about reporting in on time. Deal with the individuals. Uh-huh. That was one of the expectations. Anyway, once the rules went up, you could see the light bulbs going off in the kids. They would say, oh, I wrote that rule. That's my rule. That's my rule. That's my rule. And the crazy thing was, you know, when a kid violated the rule, whose rules were they violating?
Their own.
Yeah. So I was serving the students.
Uh-huh.
They were not obeying the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So one of life's, there are 5 needs that all human beings have. One of those is control. All human beings have a need to control their life. And that varies from a low need to control to a high need to control to a control freak.
Mm-hmm.
But every kid has a need to control. So I gave them control. They had the rules. So when a rule was violated, I'd look up there and I'd say, somebody's violating rule number 2. And they'd look over at the kid who's violating rule number 2. What do you think that kid did?
Uh-oh, I wrote that rule.
And the other interesting thing, I had a teacher out in Las Vegas. He says, you know what I've done with your rules? He said, when a kid violates a rule and they don't change it, I go to the students and I say, thumbs up or thumbs down. Do you want me to send this kid to the office for violating that rule? You give control. Here's the secret to leadership, whether you're a parent, a leader, a supervisor, or anywhere. You give control to the people below you,
mm-hmm.
but you never give it up.
Right.
So when the teacher says, so-and-so is violating rule number 2, do you want to send him to the office? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Looks out there, and 99% of the time, it's thumbs up. The other students send the kid to the office. So who's the bad guy?
That's interesting. Whoever wrote the rule almost sounds like a democracy.
I tell you what, when you give control to the students, they are going to do what they need to do. And when you talk about politics, the socialism thing that's going on right now, control. Who, in a socialist society, who has control? The government. It's a disaster. Mm-hmm. When you take control away from the people, it's a disaster. In a democracy, you give control to the people, but the government does not give it away.
Right.
You've got the Supreme Court, you've got the Constitution, you've got the law officials, you've got all of this stuff that you've given control to the people in a democracy, but you don't give it up. Mm-hmm. That's why our country has been so successful, because it allows the people who live here to have some control over what happens to them. When you take control away, as in socialism, it's a disaster. Mm-hmm. Because the people's needs aren't being met. We haven't talked about the people's needs, have we?
I think we have.
I think we did in another.
Oh, okay. You know what? It just in case if we did not, you can go ahead and do so as well too. So let's go ahead and cover that base just in case.
Well, one of the other things I did to give control, at the end of the school year, I asked the kids, Dr. Bulach, in that case when I was a teacher, Mr. Bulach, is a good teacher because, complete that sentence as many times as you want. And the second one was, Mr. Bulach would be a better teacher if. So, is a good teacher because identified my forces for being a good teacher. Would be a better teacher if identified forces against. Force field analysis was introduced back in the 50s under Kurt Lewin, Lewin, and anybody listening can go on the web and look that up. This is my simplified version. Good because, be better if. And the students would write why they thought I was a good teacher. Mm-hmm. Why they thought I'd be a better teacher. I did that when I was a principal. I did it when I was a superintendent. I did it when I was a college professor. And the data that you get back is one of the 5 basic communication skills. Feedback. How do you get good feedback? That's the best way to get good feedback on how you're doing. Anybody listening out there, whether you're a minister, whether you're a judge, whether you're a supervisor on an assembly line, ask the people below you. Is good because would be better if. And you will get great feedback. And if you get somebody that says, you're good because, and I have all the things you're good because, and nothing better if, throw that away. If you get somebody who rips you and has nothing good to say about you and rips you, throw that away. The ones in between are looking at you to help you. Okay. So they don't love. The other ones don't love you, and the other ones don't hate you. Okay.
So basically, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let's see. We were talking about the 6 reasons for low test scores in school culture and climate, and the major cause for school culture and climate to be not good is discipline. Is that where you want to go?
We can head towards that direction, and I think we talked about as well, too, it's how you word things, and some people take it the right way, some people take it the wrong way, but poor school culture and climate is something to be addressed as well in terms of discipline. We'll talk about very quickly. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHEart Radio. Also on Anchor FM and Radio Public. Also on iTunes, Apple, and Google Play. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device and subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. We're here with Dr. Clete Bulach talking about the test scores, and also he's got the 2 books, as we mentioned as well, too. And we'll quickly jump over to 6 causes of low test scores. We've covered some of it, and specifically poor school culture and climate, and one of them involves discipline. So let's talk about that. And, of course, it's obvious what's happening in the media as well, too. Lack of discipline, running rampant in the schools today.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Well, one of the major problems we talked about school culture and climate, and I talked about the things you could do to improve school culture and climate, which was the expectations, diagnosis, and setting the rules, and finding out how your leadership is perceived, getting feedback on how you're coming across. And then you get to the second cause of school culture and climate. It's discipline. I'm 81 years old. I have sat in hundreds of teachers' classrooms. I've supervised many student teachers and watched how they deal with behavior in the classroom. On an average day in a class, a 1-hour class or a 45-minute class, the teacher has to stop teaching to correct student misbehavior on average 5 times.
Wow, 5 times, and that is the second one, time lost in the instructional process because teachers have to stop teaching to correct a student, and it's 5 times. Wow.
Well, 5 times is normal. I mean, I have been in a classroom where 10 and 15 times was the average.
Unbelievable.
But it disrupts the learning process. Mm-hmm. So give me that note. Sit up. Look up here. Stop talking, and on with what goes on in the classroom. And in many classrooms today, with the stupid federal government, they put special ed students in classrooms, which disrupts the learning process completely. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I came up with this process on how to reduce discipline problems in classrooms by 75%. It was very simple. I said I had the teachers count how many times they had to stop teaching to correct misbehavior. And on an average week, it would be 100 times.
Wow.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or 50.
Mm-hmm.
They'd go back to the students and they'd say, you know, I had to stop teaching last week 50 times to correct student misbehavior. I tell you what, if you will help me with that and you can reduce it by 25%, I'll give you an extra 5 minutes of recess time. And the teachers look at the teacher like she's crazy or he's crazy. You're going to give us an extra 5 minutes of recess? Yeah, if you'll help me. Will you see students not doing what they're supposed to do? Help me out. And they do it.
Interesting.
They do it. And I've done it many times. When I didn't feel good, I'd go into the classroom and I'd say, guys, I don't feel very good today. How about helping me out? And they would take over. They'd take over the classroom.
That is
I
interesting.
didn't have to do.
That's interesting. I heard something about that. That is very interesting. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Well, it's control. I gave control to the kids. I said, help me out. You see something that shouldn't be done? Correct it. I don't need to do this. And they would do it. But when you set up this system of a reward for all the kids they get, if they help you out with discipline, they will jump all over it.
Mm.
And you give control to the kids. You don't give it up. And they love being part of the discipline problem. And in schools where this was done, discipline problems were reduced by 75%.
Wow.
So the teacher had more time to teach, had more time to enjoy being a teacher, being in a classroom, being working with the students instead of students working against the teacher. And you set up that system with all of the things I told you about. What do you want the rules to be? What do you expect of me? What kind of teacher do you think I am? And this system, discipline problems are reduced by 75%. Then you've got the 9 forms of power. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's the overuse of 4 controlling forms of power versus 5 freeing forms of power causing resistance. That's another point, too. I love to hear that one.
Well, you know, most teachers get position power when they're hired.
Mm-hmm.
When you get position power, you get the ability to reward and punish.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the controlling forms. The other form of controlling power is called connection power. The guy who hired you gives you position, reward, and coercion power. As long as that guy likes you, or person likes you, you have position, reward, and coercion power. If that person doesn't support you, you lose position, reward, and coercion power, which happens so many times in schools all across the United States. A teacher sends a student to the principal or whoever's doing the discipline for punishment, and that person doesn't do anything. Mm-hmm. What happens to the teacher's position power?
It gets diminished.
Yes. And if that happens more than once or twice or often, the teacher's position power is nothing. The kids run rampant in that classroom, and the teacher quits. Mm-hmm. That happens in years 3 to 5 too many times.
Mm-hmm. And now
the freeing forms of power are, and I'll just rattle them off, information, expertise, personality, ego, and moral. These are the forms of power that most teachers and leaders out there and parents out there can use. You give your kids, you give your people information, which is what we're doing right now. Uh-huh. We're giving all your listeners information, right?
Right, yes.
So they're listening. They're saying, wow, that's interesting. I think I'll try to do that. Mm-hmm. So it's freeing. Expertise is when someone demonstrates, which teachers do every day in the classroom, what the kids need to do to get a good grade. And what supervisors do on assembly lines all across the United States what leaders do, what Trump does. They demonstrate how to do things. Mm-hmm. And the people look at it and they say, yeah, that's interesting. I think I'll do that. So it's freeing. Then you get to personality, which Trump's personality is not always the best. Okay.
Of course. Well, that's open to debate as well. And it's just like, you know, everybody knows by now how big Trump's ego is. It's like you have to live in a cave to don't know how big his ego is. Oh, my God. Media plays part in this, too. But we'll talk about that another time. But go ahead.
On the next form of power, he does pretty good, and that's ego power. But anyway, personality power is people like you because people like you. All you got to do is say, hey, can you help me with this? And they say, yeah, I'll help you with that. Mm-hmm. It's freeing. Mm-hmm. They like you, and they'll help you. You come to ego power. Ego power is when you stroke someone's ego to get them to do what you want. Uh-huh. It's kind of a manipulation, and whenever you feel manipulated with this form of power, you resist. Right. If you stroke somebody's ego too many times to get them to do something, they say, "What the hell does he want this time?" Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and lose effectiveness too.
Yes. Ego power is a tremendous form of power. You go to somebody and say, hey, you know, you did such a great job with this last year. How about helping me out? Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, sure, I'll help you out. It's a freeing form of power. There's another form of ego power. It's called the negative ego stroke. Uh-huh. I don't know if we have enough time to go into that.
We have a few minutes, but go right ahead.
Okay. I gave my talk on power to all of my graduate students, and I says, has anybody got another form of power that I haven't talked about? And one day a coach says, yeah, I got one. I says, what is it? He says, I do a negative ego stroke. I says, well, tell me how that works. He says, I go to the team and I say, all right, you guys, we're playing this team across town today, and I'm not sure that we can beat them. Uh-huh. They look at me and they say, Coach, what are you talking about? I says, well, they're a good team. Coach, we can beat their ass. The negative ego stroke, and the one I do in my book, is Muhammad Ali. When he was in the fourth grade, Cassius Clay. Mm-hmm. When he was in the fourth grade, his teacher said, Cassius, you're never going to amount to anything. You're just a dumb black kid. Oh. You know, when he won the Olympic glove in Cuba for boxing, guess where he went the first time he got back in town?
He went right back to the school, and I'm sure, just made the teacher wrong.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, he did. The negative ego stroke is a tremendous motivator if done on the right person. Mm-hmm. If done on the right person, they'll say, yeah, you're right, I can't do it. Uh-huh. So it's manipulation at its highest level. It has to be done on the right people, and you got to know what you're doing.
And, of course, it has to be proper timing as well.
Moral power is the best form of power. Parents listening out there, anyone listening out there, what are the rules in your household? What are the rules in your organization? Do they know them? Most parents don't have the rules listed. The kids have to learn what's right and wrong. And sometimes they get punished because they didn't know what the rule was. So, you know, we've got 5 kids, and I asked them, what do you think the rules ought to be in this house? And I gave them all 3 of my 5 cards. What do you want the rules to be in this house? And curfew was one of the rules. We agreed on curfew was 12 o'clock. Uh-huh. We get into one of the 5 conflict management styles, avoidance. and we can hit on that in a little bit if you want. But if the kids know what the rules are and they violate a rule, all you got to do is say, hey, the rule is, and you didn't do it. And they say, oh, I forgot. And normally when you remind people of what the rules are, they will say, oh, you're right. And they change and correct their behavior. So moral power is, what is the right thing to do in this organization, in this school, in this family, in this company, in this so forth, wherever you are? What are the rules? If they know what the rules are and they violate a rule, normally all you got to do is remind them that they violated the rule. Mm-hmm. And they will say, oh, yeah, I screwed up. And they will change. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have moral power in place, what are the rules in a family, in an organization? When I went to the kids and I say, what do you want the rules to be in this classroom? Moral power was in place. When I went to the faculty and I said, what do you think the expectations ought to be here? I knew what I had to do. And so forth. Moral power is the most powerful form of power. Mm-hmm. But if they don't know what the rules are, the right thing to do. When I was a school superintendent, the boards, out of the 14 years, I had 2 years with a good school board. Those board members would fight with each other, and I would put a big banner across the back of the room. What's the right thing to do? And when I couldn't stop them from fighting, I would say, hey, guys, what's the right thing to do? And I'd bring them back to thinking about what was the right thing to do instead of what they were into. Moral power. So here we go. 5 fleeting forms of power: information, personality, expertise, ego, and moral power. Mm-hmm. Any leader out there, any parent out there should use those forms of power to control their kids. Mm-hmm. When the kids do not do what they're supposed to do, when the employee does not do what they're supposed to do, you have to go to the 4 controlling forms of power: position, reward, and coercion. Mm-hmm. As a leader, you give control to people, but you never give it up. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a fan of Trump, but he has not given up control. He gives control to Kim Jong-un. He gives control to Iran. He gives control to France. He gives control to England. He gives control to the UN. He gives control to Congress, but he doesn't give it up. And that's the mark of a true leader, a true parent, a true anyone who is a leader. Give control to people, but don't give it up. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that's needed as well too in families. And of course, you know, speaking of families being involved in parent and community, we'll talk about in just a minute. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@SonicWebStudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeart. Also on Google Play, Apple, and iTunes. Also on Radio Public and Anchor FM. Also take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device and subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. We're here with Dr. Clete Bulach, the author of Enhancing a High-Performing School Culture and Climate, and also School Climate and Culture Vis-a-Vis Student Learning, published by Rowman and Littlefield. He's a retired Ohio School Superintendent, Associate Professor Emeritus of University of West Virginia, and also Superintendent of the West Virginia and Georgia schools. We were talking about the 6 causes of low test scores and went into very great detail, which was greatly appreciated, especially in today's school culture and society. And, of course, there's also parents and community in the school system, but yet there's a failure that's involving parents and community. That's part of the low test scores. You can just talk about that. So basically, it's like there's a failure to involve the parents and community. It's like, it sounds like with the whole school system, but then for some reason that the schools don't involve the parents and community, and makes you wonder, why is that?
Well, it's difficult. In the elementary schools, most of the parents come in and visit with the teacher and so forth a lot. But in the middle and high school, the teachers, I asked the teachers in West Virginia, what do you like about your schools? And they said the parents. And I said, what don't you like about your schools? And they said the parents. I said, well, tell me about that. And they said, well, some of these parents, they'll do anything we want. They'll help us. They care about us. They'll listen to us. They are here. They are our support. And then you've got these other parents, and we're talking about 75% or more. Mm-hmm. They don't like us. They in rich communities, they consider us their servants, and they want to control us and tell us what to do. So many teachers in the wealthier communities don't like the parents because the parents out there think they're better. Mm-hmm. And they are, money-wise, professional. So how do you get parents involved in the school so that they support the school? And I have an interesting program called Character Ed. I've investigated I've been character evaluators in 2 states and many other states with school districts, California, Atlantic City, and on, hundreds of schools evaluating their character ed programs. Most character ed programs start off positive. You gather the data the first year using my survey, which is on my website, and it is free, to evaluate how students perceive the behavior of the other students on 28 character traits, 16 sets of character traits. And you get a baseline data, and then you put in your character ed program. And in every district, in the first year, scores go up. Year 2, scores move up a little bit. Year 3, scores go down. Year 4, scores are back where they were in year 1.
Uh-huh.
Character ed programs do not work because teachers don't like it. Every year they got to do the same thing. In the state of Georgia, there's a state law that says you must have a character education program and you must file it with the State Department of Education. Well, every year they file it, but there's nothing happening. I mean, if you were to go into schools today, there wouldn't be anything you could see. In a few schools, you've got all these posters, and you've got these, each hallway is called a different character ed hallway, truthfulness hallway, and on with the markers. But here's what you got to do if you want to have parents involved. You identify one trait that you're going to hammer all year. And my suggestion is you start the year with courtesy. So you go to the kids and you say, if people were courteous to you, what would you want them to do or say? You go to the teachers and you say, if people were courteous in this school, what would you want them to do to say? At the open house in the fall, you go to the parents and you say, if people were courteous at this school, what would you want them to do or say? You go to the Chamber of Commerce and you say, if people were courteous in this town, what would you want them to do or say? And you compile, out of all of the responses on the 3x5 cards, you compile a list of 8, 9, 10, whatever, how many behaviors you think you can put on a poster. And the Chamber of Commerce comes up with a nice poster. Courtesy in Podunk is this. And it gets posted in a post office. It gets posted in every church. Gets posted in every business. Gets posted everywhere. Gets posted in every bus. Gets posted in every classroom. And it gets posted on every refrigerator at home.
Mm-hmm.
And for 1 year, everybody in this town is focused on how to be courteous.
Wow.
Because most people don't think about what is courtesy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Courtesy is just simply common sense. Please, thank you, and some.
Well,
things,
I put on it and don't write thank you and please, because everybody will write that. That's two of the behaviors. I want to know more than please and thank you. Cussing is a discourteous behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's the worst. When I do my character ed survey, cussing is the lowest score on all 96 of the character ed behaviors. It's the lowest. And humility is the lowest character trait with the lowest score.
Wow.
And if you look at the Bible, humility is one of the traits that Jesus said was the most important.
Mm-hmm. And that is so true. And I have to say this: humility, in my view, is lacking in society today. It
is. And I'm afraid in my career I have not always been humility. My humility has been lacking, but now that I'm 80, I'm humble. I try to show some humility. But anyway, so every year, in Georgia, you're supposed to teach all 28 character traits, one a week. And they've done it every year for 4 years, and the kids say, we did that last year. The teachers say, I'm tired of doing this stuff. I'd rather teach reading. I'd rather teach history. I don't want to do this crap.
Mm-hmm.
And so the enthusiasm for it is not there. But if you were to identify one trait each year and identify 10 behaviors for that trait and get it out to the community and get it out to the parents, post it on the refrigerator, you would involve the entire community and all the parents in your endeavor to change the behavior on one trait. The next trait that I recommend is self-respect.
Mm-hmm.
Because self-respect, kids with sex and drugs and clothing and body grooming and so forth, there's self-respect is not something that a lot of kids pay a lot of attention to.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, cussing would be right back. Some of these traits go over. If you have self-respect, why would you cuss?
Exactly. It's what you see in the media as well, too, which I have to say it's not encouraging.
So every year you would change the trait.
Mm-hmm.
So since there are 28 character traits out there, they would never get bored with the traits because you're changing it every year.
Uh-huh.
But every year you would just capitalize or reinforce on the previous trait. If you look at courtesy, and everybody can choose what they want to do next. The next, you could go with compassion.
That's a good one. Yes, that's what we need.
And compassion would reinforce everything you did in courtesy. And then you got truthfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And on and on. And the crazy thing is, the school systems out there don't have no clue what they're doing on character ed. Did you know that there are 2 sets of character traits?
Go ahead.
There are traits that determine how I treat myself. So truthfulness is what I do.
Uh-huh.
Responsibility is what I do. Compassion and courtesy is how I treat others. So the traits that are out there, half of them determine how a person treats others, and the other half determine how I act.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to separate those. You cannot trade on how I treat others one year and how I treat myself the next. You have to reinforce what you just did. If you're a ball player and you've got to swing at a ball, you've got to reinforce how that swing occurs. But you can't tell a person how to swing on one ball and then work on his footwork on the next one.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know where you want to go from here, Mark.
Everything all comes together, and let's cover our last one. And since we have about a few minutes left, low levels of openness and trust between administrators, teachers, and students. That seems to be the very, very big one, and one of the causes of low test scores. Yes, and that's happening all over the schools these days, and it seems like there's a lot of resistance when it comes to openness and trust between administration, teachers, and students. And, you can talk about that and also the best way to fix it.
Okay. Are you ready to roll on that one?
Absolutely.
Okay. Openness and trust is always the lowest score.
Uh-huh.
In any school. Every school I've ever measured, that is always the lowest score. Openness has two dimensions. It's a telling and a listening dimension. Many administrators are very open on how to tell their teachers what to do. Many teachers are very open on how to tell the students what they expect. But listening is the most important human behavior. It is at the top of the list. I've been asked many times, what's the most important human behavior that you would recommend to improve what happens in the United States? It's listening.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Trump is very good at telling.
Right.
We don't know how good he is at listening. The media would say he's awful. He's a dictator.
Mm-hmm. And of course, if you ever noticed too that he always has his advisors, but then he just goes by his own decision.
Yeah, he always does.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking that he does a lot of listening to the people that he has hired, but he's very high on the telling dimension. So openness is critical. When it comes to Obama, he was very low on the listening dimension. He was very high on the telling dimension. And that was his problem. Okay, trust has 5 dimensions. There's the overall character dimension. At the bottom of the character dimension is, do they care about me? Who are they? And of course, with Obama, who is he? Where was he born?
Mm-hmm.
How did he get where he got? Who is paying for all this? On that dimension, authenticity, he was not trusted and is not trusted today because nobody knows. So that's one dimension of trust, the character dimension. Then there's truthfulness. And of course, truthfulness, if Clinton, he would be very low on that dimension. Okay.
I could tell. It's like, I didn't do it. I only touched, sniffed, or maybe just a bit of it or something. It's like, I can sense that. It's like it was all over the news, obviously.
Yeah. Truthfulness on that dimension, I don't know how I would rate Trump, but I would certainly rate him a lot higher than Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
Then you come to confidentiality. If you blow a confidence to anyone, they're going to trust you, right?
Exactly, you're right. But of course, let's just keep it on the teachers as well, too. And, we'll talk about another time with presence and everything else, but with the confidentiality, it's like you had a high level of confidentiality between teachers and students. But then with social media, it seems like has a confidentiality, is it still there? Has it improved, or has it just dropped?
Well, trust in the White House administration is blown, because they don't know who is providing information to the news media. Confidentiality is blown.
Mm-hmm.
Predictability is the fourth. Trump seems to be pretty predictable.
Right.
If you go to someone with a problem and they say, "Oh yeah, you're right. That's something I got to deal with. I'll take care of it." And then you go to them with another problem, they say, "Well, I don't see what's so wrong about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll just let that go."
Uh-huh.
Predictability is a big trust factor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a senior moment here. What was the fifth one? It's truthfulness. Ability.
Ability, that's right.
Ability is the fifth one. On ability, you'd have to score Trump on a scale of 1 to 5 on a 5.
Uh-huh.
Because he has delivered. On ability, on Obama, I'm going to let you decide what that one is.
Or let the listeners decide. We can do that too. So let the listeners decide on that one, and of course, the teachers as well too. So I have to say this is that we can talk about those as well too another time. And once again, Dr. Clete Bulach, just want to say a big thank you for your time as well too. Author of Enhancing a High Performing School Culture and Climate and School Climate and Culture Vis-a-Vis Student Learning, published by Rowman and Littlefield. Tell everybody where you can get the books and what's your website.
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. Anybody can look me on there. I got a lot of stuff posted there. I've got a second website called Improving Our Schools. There's a lot of stuff posted there on what can be done to improve our schools. And a lot of leadership information. The secondhand compliment is one of my little articles on what's the importance of giving a secondhand compliment versus complimenting a person personally. There's a big difference. Anyway.
Okay. Well,
you've been a great host, Mike, and I appreciate being on your show. And anytime you want me back, I'll be happy to be there.
Definitely will. And just want to say a big thank you for your time, Dr. Clete Bulach. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. And please do everybody a favor, keep us up to date. And if there's any other new information, if there's a way it can help, and they can contact you and let us know. And look forward to having you again soon. You've been excellent, I have to say. I learned a lot from you. Wish I was your teacher.
Okay. You take care.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Listen online at themikewagnershow.com and on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHEart Radio. And watch the interview on YouTube. Also, become a sponsor of the program and or donate today at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again tomorrow for another episode of The Mike Wagner Show.